Hello, and welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am the producer, Jason Lewis. I would like to thank you for tuning in to the From the Shadows podcast. And without further ado, here is your host, Shane Grove.
Hey, Jason. Before we get into this week's episode, which is it's our first basically on location episode, right?
Yes, it is. First on location.
First on location episode. So we had a lot of fun with David and Randy from the Paranormal Road.
Yep.
Paranormal Road podcast. Amy Bue, who's a nationally known Bigfoot expert, even though she tries to argue with us and say she's not. Whenever she's in the room with us, she is the expert, so we got to give her credit, right?
Absolutely, and a Bigfoot researcher as well.
Bigfoot researcher, yeah. Well, don't you have to be a researcher to be an expert? I mean,
not necessarily.
Okay. All right. Well, so, before we get into the episode, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. And as always, we want to encourage you, if you like the podcast, and you must, if you're listening, you must like the podcast, please share it with your friends. Whatever podcaster that you listen to, if you can, subscribe.
That means a lot.
Yeah, it does. It means a lot. And we talk about it a lot, but it does. It means a lot. It helps us get more exposure, more people listen to us, and we have a lot of cool
getting guests also.
Well, what gets guests? We get guests because we're such charming guys. And Alyssa.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say you better throw Elisa in there.
But yeah, it does mean a lot. I mean, to have subscribers, to have people rate us, it moves us up the list, so that more and more people become aware of us. It really is. It really does. We can't emphasize it enough how much it means. And then, especially now, we have our new merchandise page. So if you really want to support the podcast, go to the merchandise page, buy a sticker, buy a coffee mug, get a T-shirt, get an autographed book. We got some new stuff with the book, with my book series. It's going to kind of get relaunched here in a little bit, so we'll have details about that. Some very exciting things going on with that. So, that's a great way to help support us. Get some From the Shadows podcast merchandise.
Well, don't forget to tell them the location. The URL for that is fromtheshadowspodcast.com. And you can also listen to every episode. There's a little tune-in gadget on there, and you can listen to every episode straight from the website. We have links to our social media, and like he said, we have a big link to our new storefront, which is now open and ready for business, and it is secured shopping cart. So everything's all good with that. We'll be adding more merchandise along the way, so just keep abreast on what's going on. Check us out. We're going to be adding a new page to the website talking about things we're going to do as this coronavirus epidemic comes to an end and they open the world back up. If we're going to be hitting a convention or something like that, we'll have a link on that. It'll be everything will be centralized off of the web page ultimately. Yeah. So that's the way we plan to do it.
And yes, for everybody that's asked, we will have 8x10 autographed pictures of Jerry available at some point.
I don't know why they want them, but yes, we will do that. He's looking forward to the photo shoot.
And word on the street is we may even have a design for an Ozark Howler T-shirt.
Now that is in the works that is definitely in the works, Shane.
That is definitely in the works. So
yes, it is.
A lot of cool stuff coming, but we want you to go join our After the Shadows Facebook group. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear, and just share it around, okay? Because when you share the stuff and our audience grows, we get to go do cool stuff, like go to the campground with David and Randy and Amy Bue and go Bigfoot. So
Squatching.
if you're listening, we know you like that stuff, because why else would you listen if you didn't like that stuff? So
Absolutely.
So we'll get out of the way, check out this interview, and then stay tuned after the interview, because you'll hear a recap of what happened. And I don't want to give anything away, but it's worth checking out. Once you hear the episode, let us know what you think happened out there. So
we had a blast too. And people, if you hear people in the background screaming, yelling, having a good time, it's because they were doing just that. So this is live on location.
Yes, live on location. Yeah. So for us to have better mics and stuff, you're going to have to buy a lot more T-shirts. So okay, here's the episode. We'll get out of the way. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Welcome, everybody, to this somewhat live and unscripted edition of the From the Shadows podcast. We are coming.
Are we ever scripted?
Listen, you don't want to peel back the curtain and show everything about the show, right? I mean,
all right.
Make them think we know what
Fully
we're doing.
dressed this evening.
Fully dressed this evening. Jerry's videoing, just so you know that. Get dressed.
Yeah, I've been videoing.
For years?
For years? 5 minutes.
We're kind of excited tonight. We've been planning this little excursion to northeast Ohio. We're at Schaun Acres Campground outside of Oberlin, Ohio. And we're going to get into why we're here. And instead of counting on me to remember everybody and their why they're sitting at the Justice League table, is that right? The Justice League of Bigfoot hunters and podcasters here in Ohio. I'm just going to point, and everybody can introduce themselves. So
This
Jerry,
is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast.
And of course, I'm the judge.
I'm Dave Hensley from Paranormal Road podcast.
And I'm Randy Kessler from the Paranormal Road podcast.
Amy Bue from the Boo Report from the Paranormal Road podcast.
And researcher.
And researcher.
Bigfoot researcher.
Jerry, lead investigator from the Shadows podcast and working the camera.
and we are up here tonight because, David, you want to kind of fill us in why you invited us up here before we get into the some witness testimony?
Sure. Starting Paranormal Road, never in the wildest dreams ever could imagine that there would be any cryptid or Bigfoot activity in our campground. Now, we started the third season here, and last year, now knowing and meeting Amy Bue and having her on our show and knowing more about the habits of these creatures, we were sitting out here one night at our campsite about 2:30 in the morning, and from the wood lines, just directly straight that direction. I know they can't see, but it's that direction.
Jerry's got you on camera.
Jerry.
See, they can see. Oops.
So there was this incredible, god-awful woman scream sound that went on for the lung capacity had to be incredible. Everybody shut up. One woman is like, "What the is that?" And there were 8 adults here. One guy was a hunter, avid hunter. In fact, he said he hunted game in Africa, and he said, "I can tell you now, that is not a coyote. It is nothing that I know of in the state of Ohio." And he was scared and spooked. So the next morning, Sue, one of our neighbors, was walking her dogs, and I said, "Hey, Sue, did you hear something strange last night?" And the first thing out of her mouth was, "Oh, you mean the screaming?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, she says, "Yeah, it started about a month ago." She says, "I don't walk my dog at night anymore because she's here all week long and around. Most of us are only here on the weekends." So that being said, I'm thinking, okay, what are the odds? I then looked it up on the internet, and I'm looking for Bigfoot sounds, and I find almost an identical match what we heard. It's called the Polyop, Washington Bigfoot Scream. It was recorded in 1973. The only difference is what we heard was like 10 times louder and clearer. And so I played that for Randy, for Sue, and every one of the 8 adults here without telling them what it was. And they said, "Yeah." And in fact, Randy, you thought I recorded it that night.
Recorded it.
Yeah. And he said, "Oh, you recorded it?" I'm like, "No." And then I showed him the title was, Polyop, Washington, 1973, Bigfoot Screams. So,
For
then,
those who are unfamiliar with the campground, could you give us sort of the lay of the land as far as how big it is? Is there adjacent woods?
yeah, it's a very small campground. It's been here for many years. There's a seasonal section, then there's a section for weekenders, day pass, and there's an extensive tenting area in the woods with the creek. But the campground itself butts up against Firelands, a reserve property. And I'm guessing maybe it's 400 or 500 acres of woods. And that's where the sound came from.
That's a lot of woods.
Yeah, it is. And all through this area, it's mainly farmland. But there are these patches, large patches of woods. And interestingly, if you look at it for aerial, many of these woods, surrounded by farms, large farms, there will be a creek that goes through them that connects them all. So the thought is, could it be navigating between? And earlier this year in May, we had people that came and asked me if I heard the scream, and I'm like, no, I took NyQuil. I was out like a light. And
NyQuil, yeah.
Yes, I remember it was a Saturday. You texted me and it's like, you're never going to
It
believe
screamed
this.
again.
Yeah, it screamed again, but I was asleep.
I had NyQuil, I'm sorry.
So all of our listeners out there, go to Google Earth
Yeah.
and put in Schaun Acres Campground, and you'll be able to see how much
Yeah.
woodland there is that's adjacent to the campground. So for purposes of a Sasquatch to be able to navigate around the waterways and woodways, be plenty of coverage.
And you
it's
say that's
spelled strange. It's SCHAUN.
yeah. And so you're saying there's 6 or 7 patches of 400 or 500 acre woods.
All around this whole area,
All around
in the Wakeman,
okay.
Kipton area.
And what isn't woods is farmland.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of housing or anything real close to us.
So Rainey, I know you're the bigger chicken of the two.
Yeah, you know how I am about
So-
Bigfoot.
So how did you feel hearing those screams? Like what was going through your mind?
Well, the first thing was I just didn't know what the hell it was, and I'm thinking, what? At 2 o'clock in the morning, they'd be screaming like that out in the woods. Then Dave, who's always on the Bigfoot train, was telling me, oh no, it had to be a Bigfoot. So
You know, the Bigfoot train would be a hot selling item at Christmas.
I know.
I'm just
We're
telling you.
thinking about it.
For anybody out there that's
Bigfoot
thinking,
Express.
the Amy Caboose. How about that? How about that?
Train, I like it.
Is that
I like
what
it.
it is?
The Amy Caboose.
I
And
was
it
gonna
could go
name- if
through
I-
Boston, right?
Before I had my daughter, I always wanted to name a daughter Kara, but I couldn't do it. Caribou.
Caribou.
Right? And I always loved that.
That would have been
name.
cruel.
That would have been.
Yes. Worst mom ever.
But after
probably.
talking to a lot of the campers here, and while they didn't necessarily believe in Bigfoot, they did start hearing it. I mean, start recognizing, yeah, I've heard tree knocks too. I've heard that knocking. I just figured I didn't know what it was. But almost all of us have heard the cracking in the woods, and it's not like a tree falling. You can tell the difference. This is like a crack. And
Well, where we're sitting, okay. There's how many campers? Like 10 in this between you and the
At least.
Yeah,
at
about
least.
10.
So it's not like your camper's sitting right on the edge of the
No.
woods. I mean, if you are hearing it, how about the people that are right
But
along
you know
the
the
woods?
funny, scary thing about that is the one woman that was sitting here and heard it, her camper is
Right on the wood
smack
line.
on the wood line on the creek.
She was by
So,
herself.
and really, they've only been here twice this whole summer, so we don't know if
Oh
that's...
yeah. Oh
related
yeah.
or not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But I heard the knocks Thursday before Labor Day last year, sitting out here again 2 in the morning. There was only 3 other campers here, and I was watching lightning over there, and just kind of chilling, and I hear this big crack come through, and I heard it again. So I took out my phone. I actually recorded the last one, and you know, sitting here thinking, there's no animal that I know of in Ohio that bangs on trees. It's not like you could say it's a goat ramming its head. You know, there's no animal that I know of that can do that in the woods.
Cows
So-
don't move that fast. So.
No.
and that's protected land. You're not allowed in there at night. It's park property. So what else could be making that sound? And then this year, right off the bat,
Yes, we have. Everybody can't see. We have a special guest. Another witness.
Yes.
Another witness who's not just in it for the podcast fame.
No.
Okay. Reluctantly, she's sitting here. You want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about what you have experienced?
Or do you want to give us a fake name?
No,
You
that's all
wanna give us a
right.
fake name?
My name is Cindy. I've camped here on and off for 25 years. So we've been here for a while.
Okay.
And I was in the camper asleep, had the air conditioner on, and I heard this god-awful scream. I got up and went outside because I thought somebody was being hurt. It was that loud and that distinct.
How long did it last?
About, I would say maybe 30, 45 seconds.
Holy.
That's lung capacity.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long...
And you know the thing about it is, people think that's not very long, but try screaming
for that long, yes.
for 30 seconds. Try holding your breath for 30 seconds,
Right.
and you'll realize, gee, that's a long
And a
time.
deep guttural scream like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot. of
very
long.
visceral scream.
Not like a woman being murdered.
Well, it sounded like a woman.
Okay.
I wouldn't say be murdered, but it sounded like somebody like either very angry or just. It was strange.
So
You were
you
talking to somebody else.
And then we were sitting and I talked to Sue, and Sue's like, "Oh yeah, about 3 o'clock." And I said, "Yeah, you heard it too?" Because when I went outside and then didn't hear it, I'm thinking, oh, maybe it was a dream, and it just woke me up. But then I find out Sue heard the exact same thing at the exact same time.
I'm going to throw something out there. It's completely off the wall because we're in the field.
Jerry was here.
No.
Okay.
All
right.
I had a similar experience, except I have feral cats that live in my house, and when they're trying to mate, the female will cry out in anger and be frustrated. What I'm saying is, we don't know how Sasquatch mates.
Right.
Could this have been a situation where look, I don't know.
We're going to take this to Bigfoot's
I'm telling you.
mating out.
Well, I don't know. Well, look, seriously, what do we know about?
It was really good.
Now this is where we bring in
Amy on this one.
Maybe he
See,
got lucky.
But see, this is where we bring in our expert,
Oh yeah.
Amy Bue.
I am not an
Amy,
expert.
so what is the
Amy
the
Bue
mating-
is an expert. Do not
I'm
let her
an
lie.
expert.
What is the mating patterns of primates? I can't believe that they're engaged in consensual coitus. I walk out and catch two cats in the act of Congress. It's not a consensual
Well, I don't
thing.
think they have like candlelit dinners or anything like that.
The ambiance that we have here.
Yes. That's going to be a next question in my group. I'm not really
Well,
sure
outside
how
of-
romantic they are.
Outside.
Yeah, they do.
Outside of
they definitely have
arachnoids and different insects in which the
vocals,
female
vocalizations.
is the one that lures the males in and mates with them and kills them. And the mating is a consensual thing that the female is asking to be mated. Most mammals, the female, outside of Homo sapiens, the female is not asking to be mated with.
He knows way too much.
I have a
about
fair
the-
share of
You're
animal
the
husbandry.
expert. You're the expert.
No, but so what I'm saying is, if,
No, I
if
understand
you're
what you're
thinking,
saying. They definitely would have different calls and different habits and stuff depending on the primate that you're talking about. But whether they get that vocal, I'm not sure. But I will ask and find out.
I think it's a relevant question.
I think
It
her
is.
group's going to ban her from any more
No,
podcasts.
wait a second. Who are you
that's a
hanging
good
out with on the
question.
weekend?
That's a good
No, I think it's a
question. I don't think
legitimate
we've ever
question.
talked about that before.
We assume
Okay,
that
I'm going to text them right now.
Oh boy, this is like real
Real
time answers.
Yes. So we assume that Sasquatch travels possibly in familial packs. That's a theory.
I believe that.
Okay, that's a theory. And my cats, they live in a familial pack, but when the female goes in heat, she gets chased and she gets pursued by multiple males, and she's not anywhere near engaging in
Is she up at the
consensual
Crazy Fox or the Horseshoe?
Yeah.
No.
So what I'm saying is, if we look at primates, you look at primates, just go to the zoo. There's an alpha male at the zoo, and when males get old enough to be of mating age, they try to move those males because they don't want to get in a situation where you have a younger male trying to also mate with when you have the alpha male.
Which is why when you got to be about 4 years at Bluffton, they made you go to graduate school somewhere else.
He ain't made Christmas. This guy, we're talking about serious science, and this guy. So what I'm saying is, if we look at the animal kingdom as a whole, there's nothing that leads me to believe that if Sasquatch, one, it would be that female Sasquatch would go into heat, much like any other animal, and if they did go into heat, that it would send out a signal to males, and that. I mean,
this is my territory.
This is my territory, and it would make sense to me that if those sounds, if it's a crazed sound in the middle of the night, that.
Well, we did then the night that we heard it a year ago, at about this time. There was three separate times, and they were about 10 minutes apart. So there was one scream. We all just settled down finally, like, okay, let's get back with what we were talking about. It happened again. Another 10 minutes, it happened again. After the third time, across the campground, way in the woods back there, there was an almost identical scream, and then that was it for the night.
Now are you guys, because I listen to a lot of other podcasts that aren't just about Bigfoot.
Oh, we have an answer.
But I want to ask, do you guys know that there's not a serial killer up here? I mean, really?
The Tattletale Strangler.
Okay. What's that?
The Tattletale Strangler.
So Amy Bue has an answer from the group about mating.
Okay.
Gorillas and chimps are not very loud.
There's your answer.
Okay.
When mating.
Do not search that, by the way.
But when they fight, the screaming can be deafening with chimps.
Okay. Maybe it is like a male versus male, kind of like.
There was a really huge fight over the one really hot
Camper
Bigfoot chick.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, like I said,
I'm sure they have different vocalizations and stuff. But
I
it's not very loud.
have these multiple tomcats, and they're trying to breed the same cat, and you hear just the craziest screaming.
No,
and
I know
you're
exactly
like,
what you mean. I'd never heard of that with the gorillas
Now-
and stuff.
Now that I'm sitting here with you guys, I listen to, like I said, a lot. We do a lot of research by listening to other stuff, and there's some school of thought out there that Bigfoot or Sasquatch might be sort of a spiritual animal. Okay,
The woo. Yeah.
you guys are the spiritual guys. You pick up on. Have you guys picked up on anything maybe out of the ordinary spirit-wise, as far as in the woods or anything?
Not here. The only thing that I can say is when we were doing a paranormal investigation in Vermilion, which is, 15 miles from here?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, if that. I kept hearing about forest orbs, right? Balls of light. I never put much stock into them, either yay or nay. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But we're walking a path in the woods. It was a gravel road. And we're actually conducting EVPs or filming. And I look over, and there is a basketball-sized glowing ball of light. And it's going between the trees, and as it goes past the leaves are lighting up. And just when I said, whoa, and I'm pointing for it, just went, it's gone. It just vanished that quick. It was like somebody flipped the switch and shut off. So I was hearing of Wes Germer talking about the forest orbs. I've heard many people talk about the balls of light. And I can honestly say I saw one, and they're the strangest things. But here's the weirdest thing is, people say, well, again, like the Bigfoot, if this is real, why didn't our ancestors talk about it? They did, and they still do. If you go down to any part of southern Ohio, all you have to say is, have you seen the will o' the wisp? That's what they call them, the will o' the wisp. And people, old-timers, will say, oh yeah, we see them all the time, once in a while in the forest. Nobody knows what these balls of light are. So, are they connected to Bigfoot? I don't know. I can't say it because we were doing ghost investigation.
And you were,
but we see this floating ball, orange of light. I do, but it vanishes just as quick as I see it. And it was really cool. But you haven't picked up anything. He's our only medium, but you did.
No, I have enough trouble with the spirits of humans.
So let's go.
I haven't really tried to pick up on any spirits of Bigfoot.
I find it interesting, and I'm glad there was a hunter with you, because, like, my first question would be, was it a fox?
Right.
You know, all these animals that it could be, but if it's something he hadn't heard. And
And a lot
for
of
what you're
people in
saying,
this
how
area are
prolonged
very
it
familiar
was.
with fox
Yes,
and coyotes
yeah.
and everything.
Now,
So-
a coyote, like I have heard of coyotes
Right. You can hear
where
'em here.
Oh,
We hear 'em
where
here.
Yeah.
when coyotes in a house that I lived at out on our farm, I've heard them kill things in the field to the point where I jumped out of bed, threw the window open because you thought somebody was getting murdered. Okay, literally, you thought somebody. Then you come to your senses and go, "Oh, that's a pack of coyotes."
Yeah.
But you definitely,
You can tell
after
what
a
it
couple
was.
seconds,
Yeah.
you kept, especially when you're coming out of a deep sleep, you figure out what it is
And I also
that's out
grew up
there.
out in the city. I mean, I've
Yeah.
heard, mating cats. Okay, this is not a cat in heat. This is not. It's not a fox. I've heard foxes before. When they're in heat, they make the weirdest noise. This was, again, and like the gentleman that was here, he actually works in North Olmsted, but he said, I've hunted in Africa. I've hunted big game hunting is what I do. I'm a bow hunter. I'm in the woods all the time. He said, I'm telling you, I don't know of anything in Ohio that can make that kind of noise. So that really, like, I think disturbed everybody else.
Except that if you ask enough people, they do know in Ohio what can make that.
Yeah.
What can make that noise? There's enough people, I think, that have experienced it. So Amy, what do you think about the ball light being tied to Bigfoot
I don't know
sighting?
what to think. We were talking about this a lot earlier, where I focus my energy on looking at Sasquatch as a possible primate, living and breathing, this normal primate. That's where I focus my energy and my time, especially with the scientists that I work with and everything. But that is not to say that that's correct. I always say it could be something else. We don't know. Like, and I feel like anybody who tells you they know is lying. I don't know how else to say that. Maybe not lying, but
You
is
can
wrong.
say it. You can say it.
I
We've
don't
said
think
worse.
that they can say that.
We've said-
But
we haven't actually got a carcass or anything to.
yeah, so
to
I don't.
say
I feel
whether
like
it is.
maybe not lying, but like I don't think that they can say that, and I certainly can't say that. And so that kind of story fascinates me. And like you said, you're not sure if it had anything to do with Bigfoot or not. I don't
Right.
think it has to. There could be two separate things going
Right.
on, but I hear stories all the time that I can't explain with science. Perhaps it's just science we don't or haven't caught up to yet. We don't know how it works. But if you talk to somebody and they say, well, I saw this Bigfoot and then it disappeared, a lot of people in Bigfoot circles, there's a lot of, okay, it's natural creature, primate, it's supernatural or paranormal, and sometimes they clash or make fun of each other, But then
And
you
it's
have
really neat that we have both sides of the coin
yeah, I love it.
sitting under the same tent.
I think it's really important. I want
If we
very
can get
much
along,
to be
everybody
able to
can get
have
along, right?
yeah
That's right.
to have an open discussion, because I feel like you can always learn something from other people.
Right. It's to draw upon a historical analysis when they were at the Continental Congress, when they were going to draft up to basically the Constitution. One of the things that they did was they nailed the windows shut of the building they were in, because they were so scared of people eavesdropping and
Yeah.
hearing what they were talking about, and that they couldn't really get work done. And I kind of, in this field, it's kind of the same way. You have people that, like you said, make fun of the other side, and it's really cool that we have very intelligent people experienced in their field, and they're willing to share ideas and put everybody to say, look, I can't say my side's right.
No, I always think about that movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy, where the pop bottle falls out of the sky, and whatever the tribal members thought it was, it still fell out of the sky and it was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just their opinion of what that object was or why it was there doesn't take away from the fact it was real. So we're just all trying to kind of figure out what's going on. I don't see a reason why it can't be a real animal.
I'm impressed that we mentioned the Continental Congress.
I know, right?
And I was
we used
wondering,
the word Congress earlier in a
no, you did. I knew you were.
very large lexicon.
But we have a judge.
I have a judge.
A plus.
But
I just wondered how you were going to tie that back.
While we got them both sitting here, in a nutshell, for our listeners, in a nutshell, give us your best argument that Bigfoot is a supernatural creature, or somehow, because I think there's there's a third theory that says, look, they're connected to UFOs and
Right.
that sort of thing. So give us your spin on why you think Bigfoot is a supernatural creature.
That's just it. I don't know. I do believe that people who are saying, you listen to their stories and they're saying it turned into a ball of light and vanished. Okay, you hear, and they seem very credible. They're very emotional when they're telling these stories. I also talked to another person who said, did you see the movie Predator? And they said, literally, it was there, and I could see it was there, but it was glistening, and I could see the leaves of the trees, and then it just moved into the trees and it was gone. So, is that supernatural, or is that a cloaking ability, like the chameleon, that we don't know how? And then they say hair samples were found, translucent hair samples were found in Texas. From my understanding, the only translucent animal is a polar bear. So you got translucent hairs in Texas. Would that be able to explain how it can camouflage itself? We don't know. So I can't really give an argument that it is supernatural. I mean, I certainly know that ghosts exist because we've encountered them. We've experienced that directly. I have not myself experienced, other than hearing the scream. I have not seen a Bigfoot. It fascinates the hell out of me. But I don't know what it is. There's a part of me that I almost wonder if it isn't something that's under the earth, or or something that's a little bit.
Theory.
Well, I mean, if you guys caught an EVP that was 30 seconds long, and that would be some great evidence. And you,
we have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's.
Well, I think and to piggyback that is, people on that side of the argument says, look, never found a carcass, never found any scat, never found any hair that we were able to identify through DNA analysis as this. And then there's a whole laundry list of things. But at the same time, you come from Amy's standpoint is, well, so what? Right. You that doesn't mean anything. And I always fall back on, and it's a great story, is that the sinking of the Lusitania, which basically got the United States into World War, was that the Lusitania was a passenger ship, and the United States was loading arms on it, sneaking it to England, and the Germans warned us, look, you do that, we're going to sink you with a U-boat. We did it, the Germans sank it, the Lusitania sank and got us in the war. But what people don't know about that, because the newspaper never reported it, was that survivors who were floating in the water described a giant squid coming up and taking survivors under the water. And so when they finally rescued these people and they told this story, there wasn't a single media outlet that put that detail in there, because giant squids was a part of a folklore that sailors told to explain shipwrecks. So lo and behold, 80 years later, 70 years later, what do we find? The carcass of a giant squid. So now we know it's real. So all these years that people didn't believe that it was real because they didn't find a carcass, it was actually real. And I think that's what we're talking about with Sasquatch, is that just because you haven't found a body doesn't mean that it's not real. There's too much empirical evidence, in the law. When we do jury trials, one of the jury instructions that we give under Ohio law and every law is that circumstantial evidence is just as powerful as direct evidence, and that you can convict someone of a crime beyond a reasonable doubt on simply circumstantial evidence.
And I think
there's way more
evidence proves that Bigfoot is on the prowl.
Oh, there's way more than circumstantial evidence.
Out into these woods.
There's way more than
There's
circumstantial.
a lot more evidence than people think, and a lot more going on behind the scenes in scientific circles, if that's the way you want to look at it, than people know about, or the general person, general public knows about. But I feel why I think it could be a primate. I mean, you can look back to the known primates. You can look back to chimpanzees and orangutans and western lowland gorillas, mountain gorillas. Now this century finally getting hold of, and even just pictures but specimens of billy apes and cross river gorillas, and they're real. And the natives had said all along they were real, just like our Native Americans and indigenous people in Canada. First Nations people say these are real. They said they're real. We kind of made fun of them. Westerners were like, oh, it's your mythology, it's your legends, it's your folk tales or whatever, and there they are. So they were real. So I kind of bring that here to North America and say maybe we should be listening to them. So you have that, but also we have footprint evidence. And of course we all know that some of it is hoaxed and some of it is faked, and it just is. But you have footprints that they cannot prove are hoaxed, and they have dermal ridges in them, and they have that mid-tarsal break that Dr. Meldrum talks about all the time from Idaho State University. And I have a I guess you want to say professional relationship with a professor that has some of his students that try to recreate a Bigfoot print.
Try to create a hoax.
Yeah, they try to create a hoax. They're engineering students, and they can't do it. None of them have been successful in creating a really good hoaxed footprint, except one group. There were two guys that had sent away for a Bigfoot print, from out west, supposed Bigfoot print, and took a mold of it and then tried to do it, but they couldn't come up with it themselves. It's not that easy to come up with a convincing one.
I fall back, being a student of history, and it was a history major. I love the historical accounts by people like Davy Crockett, who, Teddy Roosevelt, people who, before coming up with a Bigfoot hoax, would have been in vogue.
Daniel Boone in the Yahoo.
Yeah. And so you're talking about historical figures who wrote in journals about situations where they came across a giant hairy man, because that would have been, hairy man is what they would have thought. And it's just like, I don't think anybody would call Teddy Roosevelt a liar.
No.
I mean, he's the guy that basically founded the national park system. And he was the African.
Which don't get me started on my conspiracy theory about the national park.
Oh yes, it's right. Missing 411.
Yeah.
So
and then you have audio. You have all this audio that people capture.
Well, the audio that you found.
Yeah, we can't say it's Bigfoot if you weren't watching Bigfoot make that noise.
Right.
But you look at all the evidence, circumstantial, but you have sighting reports, and you have footprints, and you have audio, and all in the same area. And it's unknown animal making this noise. You can put it in that software. It's really compelling. So I don't see why it couldn't be. And now we're working with the Olympic project out on the Olympic Peninsula, and we're studying these ground nests that a logging company found, and we're doing DNA testing, and looking at these hairs that were found, and all of that. It's something's doing this. And they brought in a bear specialist and a wood rat specialist, and it's not supposedly not any of those animals. So what is it? We don't know if it's Bigfoot. Hopefully, that'd be awesome.
Which I was gonna.
But it's really cool.
I was gonna ask you about your recent trip out there. Is there anything you want to throw out there and tease the audience with? Because I think we want to do another episode on that.
No, it was just like I went out. Shane Corson is one of the head guys with the Olympic project out there. And he just so nicely, I went out there to see him and his wife and daughter, and took me out to the new area that they recently found. This year they found another area with more nests, and we didn't go right up to the nests because we're trying to stay, keep our DNA away from that and everything. But we were very close in that area, and we were switching out camera batteries and recorder batteries and stuff, and it was just I don't want to, if you're gonna have me on for something else, I don't want to tell all of it, but I was just so excited with some of the stuff that was happening. And Shane's like, man, you're like really smiling. And I'm like, this is Disneyland to me. You know, like there's nowhere I'd rather be than chopping through these huckleberry bushes trying to find Bigfoot. But it's so cool out there and there's so much going on. You know, I just, it's fascinating. No matter what is making these, something is making these.
So you're falling.
So cool.
We talked about this earlier. The whole concept of Occam's razor.
Yes.
If you have a
absolutely.
mystery and you're trying to solve it, you know, most of the time the simplest answer is almost always the right one.
Right.
And the simplest answer is it's a biological creature. Mm-hmm. It nests, it mates, it does all these things that primates do. That's the simplest answer.
Right.
But then you have this empirical evidence, direct evidence that you know, now you see me, now you don't.
Right.
And these orbs of light.
So let's get back to Cindy.
Yes.
Do you ever feel compelled to sit up till 3 o'clock in the morning and hear that sound again, or not?
I would like to, but usually I'm dead asleep at night.
Would you charge into the woods?
Oh, hell no. Sorry.
That's all
Our
right.
friend over here.
Although a family show, there's a fair amount of cursing that is encouraged.
Yes. No, I would not. I'll sit here.
I'd expect.
I'll sit here, but I'm not going into the woods.
Even if Jerry went with you as a personal escort,
Listen,
No.
Jerry and the word escort, we promised
All
we would
right,
keep
come
that,
on, listen.
those two words
I'm more of a
separate.
bodyguard.
that was
Separate.
another lifestyle,
That's
and
what
he
they're
has
calling it
experience
now.
with the camp.
Is he able to get within 300 feet of the pool here?
It's 1,000 feet under Ohio law.
It's 1,000 feet under the house. Okay. All right. Virus or no virus?
Yes. When they say social distancing with Jerry, it has 1,000 yards.
It's 1,000
feet.
Jerry.
It's 1,000 feet.
Poor thing.
Always so mean to me.
We love you, Jerry.
Yeah.
We're going to love him tonight when he actually tackles Bigfoot and proves once and for all whether it's a spiritual creature or a real
Hey, listen,
primate.
There you go.
Listen, I don't think they believe it's a spirit. I was just asking because
Well, but yeah,
they
we
are
got to
the
have him at least give us some side of the
Oh,
debate.
so you're trying to create.
I'm just,
Okay, I get it.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to go out in the woods tonight?
well, I don't know that I'm going out in the woods.
He didn't bring his robe.
Oh,
That's right.
okay.
I'm thinking now's a no.
Or my gavel.
No, we're going to go out in the woods for a little bit and just
Okay.
kind of, see
I'll
what-
sit here and wait to hear from you.
see what's happening. I mean, I think that's the whole reason we came, to come and kind of get out into
Well,
the woods.
this is
a
our
little bit.
first,
Yeah.
as a group, our first real field research
Yeah.
project. And so we kind of want to get our feet wet. Amy gets her feet wet all the time. And,
Literally.
She's got a look on her face like she knows something that we don't. Like,
look, if you guys
Yeah.
lured us up here for a big scare
Yeah.
just to watch us crap
No,
our pants, I'm going to be really sore.
It's tempting, but no, I don't do that. I don't do that. It's tempting.
well, the whole idea is that we all go in and we all
Yes.
come back out.
We
So,
can do that.
I'm waiting for you guys to tell me what happened.
oh,
Yeah.
You have to
I
come.
can't.
This isn't a
I'll
pig's
be
alley
there.
situation.
Randy.
Is it?
Okay. So we will.
Well, let's ask this before
Okay, good. You're gonna
we
ask
cut
before
off.
we get off.
Are we just going to wander off in the woods, or is there trails?
There's a place I can show you where to go.
So there's actual marked trails where we're not going to get lost out there.
You might
It'll
we
end
can't
up like the
promise that.
suicide force in Japan,
You have Amy.
and they're going to find Jerry dead of his own hand.
Only
So-
way you're gonna find
That's
me dead in
creepy,
the
I've
forest
seen
is by
that.
So
Bigfoot.
I
tonight,
don't wanna
if
go
you
there.
hear a really maniacal scream, it may be the judge.
We're
Lost.
We're lost.
Help me! Help me!
Yes. Or it could be the throngs of passion of a mating cry when Bigfoot gets a whiff of Jerry's pheromones. I mean, he is.
Hey, now it's a family show, Jerry. What are you doing?
It's a family
I'm
show.
behind the camera.
You're behind the
Yeah.
camera.
He actually went out and bought Brute by Fabergé. By Fabergé, because he figured if that's a musky, a musky, like skunk apish type smell.
Yeah.
Because when I used to
Yeah.
wear it as a kid, I that was the kind of the look that women gave me when and like sort of inflame
They
their
were
nostrils.
terribly offended.
Yeah, so I would dab it
Distraught.
on, and they'd say like, "Hey, get a whiff of this brute."
Like, is that from Anchorman?
So that's Sex Panther.
60%
Jerry, did
of
you
the
bring
time
the
it works
brute?
all the time.
I got the brute.
He's got the brute.
Well, so we will.
I have
we
one more answer.
Oh, we
here
got
we go,
one more
here we go,
answer.
here we go.
Jeez, we're not used to this
What
expert.
Mary was saying.
Okay.
So, it said with orangutan long calls, it's thought that it might be used to attract females and also to identify individuals.
So with
But-
koala bears, and I know this is a little bit
Jesus.
off, but koala
Because
bears.
we're nowhere near Australia.
Well, but
Okay, go
But
ahead.
look, but with koala bears, because I like Bindi Irwin. But with koala bears, the male has to.
We've totally gone so far off the rail that we can't even see the Amy caboose anymore.
So hear me out. But hear me out.
Roll with it.
So with koala
You
bears,
can cut this off, right?
the
Jason?
male
You can edit
has
this out.
to. The male has to exhibit this deep bellow,
Oh.
and if he doesn't, the female wants nothing to do with it. And so they will, when they're trying to breed koala bears, and basically.
So any of our listeners that are trying to breed koala bears,
Well, listen, man, we're trying to compare.
yeah.
No, but
Number
seriously,
one, don't wear Brute by Fabergé.
that's exactly
Okay.
wrong. You
Or-
should wear Brute by Fabergé.
How about like some of the Avon? Remember the Avon stuff?
I always preferred Javon,
Stetson.
Musk for Men.
Stetson.
I used to have
But-
Avon perfume like that. Little
Yeah, like came in the
Hawaiian
glass.
white ginger.
Came in the glass bottles
that'll
too,
work.
like
Yeah.
people
Little green
collect them.
apple.
But anyways, back to what I said, Swingo. But with koala bears, they
We were
have
trying
to.
to go.
If the
tried.
male does not give off this really
Then
deep,
she
and
shuts him down.
Bella, she won't have anything to do with him. And so when they're trying to breed them, they have to get the males to do. And you would not believe the sound that a koala bear would make. You wouldn't believe it's this guttural bellow.
How do they get him to do it? Or is it like a
So
Cyrano de
it's
Bergerac?
well, I don't know. So
They're behind him doing
if
it.
so, what I'm saying is that bellow.
Wasn't that the movie
is-
Roxanne?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's that bellow that attracts the female. So without the bellow, the female wants nothing
This
to do with it.
explains a lot of stuff from when we were in high school and college. I think he knew this back then because there was a lot of
Bellowing.
strange
Bellow.
noises that used to come from him and Long Tom Smiley's
Yes.
Chevette as they did laps in downtown
Oh.
Bucyrus.
There you
It
go.
was I would hear
So
a
I'm
bellow.
trying to make a serious point that
So
what
am
you
I.
guys might have heard was the bellow of a male Sasquatch putting it out there that, look, I
But
am
he just sounded a
capable.
little girly.
Yeah.
He sounded a little girly.
Yeah, so
Hey. I don't judge people, only professionally.
So on that note, we will we're gonna stop here. We're gonna get ready to go out. Hopefully we'll be doing another podcast because we all make it out of this alive.
yes.
But we'll be doing maybe a couple Facebook lives while we're out there or before we get going.
I have to go get my boots.
Oh, we gotta go get some, but yeah, so we gotta get ready. So thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully we find something. I
Jerry's
guess.
working on his bellow right now. I
Jerry's
see him
working
in
on
there.
his bellow. Brute by Fabergé.
I prefer the. You remember the commercial Canoe?
Oh,
and it
God.
would say, C, come on over. A, alone.
Oh God!
In,
I never heard
now. Oh, my.
Did
You could have just made up whatever you want.
No, that's what was the commercial. Remember, it was the girl in the boat, and she has the.
No,
phone.
I don't remember the girl on the boat.
Amateur.
I remember Billy D. Williams in the Bull and then Colt
No, that's
45.
Colt 45.
Yeah.
Is that a koala?
That's Jerry's
Oh,
bellow.
God.
There's the
That's
koala
the
bear bellow.
exact noise you and Smitty made in the Chevette on a Friday night taking laps. Okay? But
Okay,
you totally.
folks, we've heard the bellow.
Yeah.
We're gonna shut it down
Hey,
here after that.
And if the president and CEO of Brute by Fabergé wants to sponsor From the Shadows
That would be a great
podcast,
space.
yeah.
We could
Great.
be ambassadors
we will
for
not
Brute.
turn
Yeah.
it down.
yeah, we will not turn down. And
For all of you
Never-
people out there that are interested in weird stuff, we will give it to you, from koala bears mating to
it's brought to you by Brute by
Brute,
Fabergé.
Fabergé.
Okay.
All right.
So we're out. Thanks everybody. Thanks for everybody that joined us tonight. So everybody say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Say bye.
All right. Hopefully not by forever.
Not by forever.
All right.
Okay, so here is our update from our little adventure at Schaun Acres Campground outside of Oberlin, Ohio. Jason's here with me for the update. What's up, Jason?
Hey, greetings, everybody.
And on the road to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference this weekend is nationally renowned Bigfoot expert Amy Bue. Say hi, Amy. That's your cue.
Hello. Hello. You're making me laugh. Not an expert.
Well, for the 50 people that listen to our podcast, you're an expert. And and somewhere in the back, somewhere driving, because this is what happens when experts go to these big conferences. Her chauffeur Lester is driving her to the show. So we wanted to jump on here quick with and give everybody an update on how our Bigfoot expedition went that Amy led us on that Saturday night from the first part of the podcast here. And I don't know, Amy, do you wanna kind of give a quick little, like, how you took us into the woods and then what happened to your equipment?
Sure,
and then...
Yeah, sure. No, I'm still laughing about that because I felt like it was Bigfooting 101 not to do. I had the worst shoes on. I didn't have my boots on, and I kept sliding everywhere, and I didn't have all my equipment, but I still had fun. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was super hot, and the more I've thought about it and talked about it, I'm glad that I was ignorant to what was really going on, because it seems to me it seems to me like maybe some stuff actually happened that if I'd in the moment realized it, I might have been a little bit more, dare I say, scared.
It was strange. Some strange stuff. Yeah, it was smothering hot in there. So we had some fearless leaders from the campground that took us into the woods. And because I wasn't familiar with that area, that was the first time I'd been there. Had to cross a creek, go up into the thicker woods, and it was so hot that night, and you felt like you didn't breathe working in there. Or hit some rain if you hear some funny noises. But so we went in there and kind of went a different way than the guys that were leading us. So we basically, after walking a little while, we just hung out in a area where the people that were with us, we could all kind of fit, and waited till they hooked back up with us. But like I was telling you guys that night, you go out bigfooting, it's not always very glamorous. You might be hiking several miles into a spot, but for this one, out in the rolling farmland and this, kind of smaller woods that we were in, we just wanted to get in there, and then you kind of stop and listen, see if you can hear anything. If I was doing a expedition or something, I'd probably just be out there for hours, just sitting and waiting to see if anything happens. A lot of bigfooting is wait and see, and a lot of times you're waiting and seeing nothing. That's, what happens most of the time for me. But, and after you guys left, I went back out there for a few hours. Still, I didn't hear anything or see anything. But when we were there, it was really weird. So I was, just, you guys were excited to go bigfooting. I was excited to meet the ghost hunters. That's something I've never done that before. And what was strange was, I've watched shows and stuff, ghost hunting shows and all that, and I know this can happen, but I've never had it happen myself where my gear, which I had just fully charged, just lost its charge. It just went, we were looking through it, I was showing people with us how to look through it and see people or see things in the woods, and bam, it was out. So that was weird. It freaked me out a little bit because it was my own equipment. And then, we were standing there and saw the red light. You and I. So we're looking through the woods, and I thought it was the guys that had gone, split about the other way. They thought we were going up to the field, but we turned around. And I thought it was Hensley. It was like that red and that bright. But it wasn't them. They were more off to the left. And besides that, they didn't have red Hensley. So we were trying to figure it out. Like, okay, could be their equipment, and they were over that they thought. But they only had one piece of equipment that just said one little red light, and it was a lot smaller than what we saw, I felt. And they only had one. And then I'm scared.
Yeah, and you know what, just as I'm sitting here, you know, right before your little piece of equipment completely lost its battery, that is when we had the one gentleman do the wood knocks. And now granted,
yes,
it was...
You're right.
Yeah, now granted, it was probably the worst wood knock ever, because the guy picked up a dead limb, and when he hit it on the tree, it snapped in half.
It exploded.
And then he almost
But you're
fell
right.
down.
Right after that.
Yeah, and then he almost fell down, picking up another limb, and he hit it on the tree. And then, yeah, do you remember that? So yes. Yeah, and you had given your piece of equipment to the judge, and he looked through it and then gave it back to you, and you were looking through it a little bit, and then you said, "Hey, this just went dead." And that's the kind of the point in time where we knew those guys, and you were being very generous by calling them fearless leaders. I think maybe clueless. I don't know. No, I don't want to. But
they were super nice to try.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. So it was obvious where we were standing. We were kind of in front of a little hill, because it appeared they were down at the bottom on the other side of a hill. And I assumed, from never being out in those woods before, that because of where they were was down in like a little valley, that where beyond them was another probably hill. Okay. And that's just what I assumed. And when I saw those red lights and then said something to you and you saw them, I mean, the only and I'm just saying this as a frame of reference for people to understand what it looked like. They look like what you would think two glowing red eyeballs would look like in the distance. And at first, the only thing I could reconcile with was maybe the reflectors, or...
Yeah, we were talking about that, because I had a red headlamp on, my headlamp reflecting, but at that time I didn't have mine on.
No, and you didn't have, I mean, and for them to be reflectors, so to keep it in perspective, the guys, we kind of knew where the guys were. These red lights were beyond where we thought the guys were. And I kind of, in my mind, thought they were halfway up whatever hill was beyond the little dip where the guys, we assumed they were. So I didn't know if maybe they were shining lights on reflectors. But it's obvious, looking back, those red lights were emanating the light. So it wasn't like they were reflecting. Yeah. And so then that gate, once we... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean, I'm not like all excited, so I don't mean to keep interrupting you.
Hey, listen, anytime I can get a woman excited, I'm great. It's so there you go. If you're excited, feel free. Keep your eyes on the road, Lester. Keep your eyes on the road, Lester.
I thought, was there like a radio tower in the distance? But you could tell they were closer than that, and then they disappeared. So it was not a radio tower or anything like that. They weren't moving. They were just there.
No, yeah, and they just kind of went out, and both at the same time.
Yeah.
But what really struck me then is when we finally got those guys' attention to come back over, check their equipment, and then said, take us over to beyond where you were. And when we stood over there, it was perfectly flat ground. So I'm sitting.
And they weren't over far enough to where I didn't think they were over far enough.
Yeah, so where it appeared we were seeing these lights over this little hill beyond. The lights had to be pretty high up in the air, which then led me to think, okay, were they tail lights from maybe we could see the road through the woods? But it was obvious once we got over to that spot, there was no road anywhere close. And
there was no road, and they were still for too long, I feel like. I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah.
We were trying everything we could think of to think what they could have been. I don't know what they were, but it was creepy.
Well, and so then the clincher for me was once we got over there and you suggested, okay, everybody, we're gonna go radio silent, all the lights turned off, and we're just gonna listen. And I kind of went and stood up in front of everybody, away from everybody, and standing there. I mean, it was so hot. I had to take my baseball hat off because I was just.
It was bad.
Yeah, and so we're in the middle of the woods. So I'm standing there in this. It felt like a stream of cold air just passed right through me, like not inside my body, but like I was standing in the middle of a gust of cold air, and it went on for 15, 20 seconds. I didn't think anything of it at first, and I'm just like, well, maybe there's a breeze coming through the woods. But then I realized there is no way for a breeze to come through where we're at. And of course, I asked everybody, did you guys?
That's kind of cold one, not a cold one.
Yeah, and I asked everybody, and nobody felt it. And so I'm not saying, okay, what we experienced out there, what exactly it was, because I don't think we know. But I think we kind of ruled out a lot of stuff that it wasn't. And to add up where you lost battery, one of Jerry's cameras went pretty low on its battery quickly. To see those red lights, which if I think back now and think, okay, were those really a pair of glowing red eyes? I mean, I might have run out of the woods if I had thought that at the time. Okay.
Yeah.
But then the cold
strikes me that way. Like it looked like I understand what you're saying. Like eyes, like the distance apart and all of that, and the shape of it. But it felt more like I don't know. Like I thought somebody had headlamps or something up, but they were more like concentrated, not like headlamps that dispersed. Just like two glowing red things. But there was nothing there when we went up there, and I was looking on trees for reflectors and stuff like that. There's nothing.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. That's my point is if for 1 second I'd have stood back and thought, oh my God, that's a pair of eyes, I would have been a little bit.
I would.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I had to tell myself there has to be a logical explanation for what we're seeing. And it wasn't till after they had disappeared and we walked up there that I started thinking,
hey, Amy.
There isn't a logical explanation.
Yeah, right. Amy and Shane, both. You guys saw these lights, and other people in the group, we were looking. We were in different spots, obviously. But when you guys are the ones that witnessed this phenomenon, so when you saw them, did they appear out of nowhere and then just suddenly disappear after the phenomenon was over, or did they melt back into the trees? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what I thought, we had been standing there a little bit, and I didn't notice them. And then Shane, you were standing by me, and you're like, look at those red lights, and I saw them, and I'm really surprised nobody else saw them. I know what you're saying. There were a lot of trees. Not everybody was right where we were, but I was really shocked that people couldn't see them because they were really obvious. They were there, and they were very bright. It wasn't like, oh, I can kind of see something. It was like, there it is, And I was like, well, who's over there? Like, who is that? Thinking somebody like I said, like red headlamps or something.
Yeah,
And-
because for our audience, for them to get a feel of what's going on here, this is an area of the woods. I wasn't over there searching myself, but I witnessed the area that after they said that there was lights over there, it made me focus and start looking over there. It is completely black. If somebody even lit a match, you would be able to tell. I mean, we're talking, it's complete darkness. There's a canopy overhead because of the trees, and so they apparently saw something.
Well, and I was
It
looking.
was one of the person that said they saw it. I thought Elisa might have seen it too.
Yeah, Elisa
I
said.
thought there was a woman.
Yeah, it was after they had disappeared, and Elisa kind of looked over in that direction and said she saw something. But when I looked over at the same time, and I couldn't. She might have been at a different angle or something.
Yeah.
But I was
didn't
only.
see it right away, but then they were there, and then you were asking, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
So
I was
don't
only
know what-
looking. I was only looking over there because it was at that point we're trying to find those guys that were our leaders, and they had been shining flashlights, and when the battery went out, and then your battery went out or got low, Jason, and it's like, okay, where are these guys that are supposed to be taking us through the woods? And it was when I looked over there and I saw like one red light and then the second one, like boom, right there together. So it's like, if we're talking in reference to eyes, it was like one eye was open and the next one opened. And when I'm standing by Amy, and I said, just so I knew I wasn't seeing things. And I said, Amy, do you see those red lights? And she sees them, and we're both looking at them, and she's like, well, who is it? And then they just, boom, went out. At the same time, boom, went out. Like somebody flicked the light switch.
Wow.
So it was almost like if it was, it was almost like if something was over there and knew we were looking at it, and when Amy said, what's that? Who's over there? It was like, oh crap.
That's fascinating.
It didn't occur to me that it was something weird at first. Like I thought it was our leaders that we couldn't find. It wasn't us. So it was just like, oh.
Well, and once and I think that's probably what you have to do when you're out doing an investigation or something, is rule out everything that it's not. And
right, definitely.
And I'm just got to be honest, it did not make me feel all that much better to start ruling stuff out. It would have been so much easier but here's the crazy thing. Those guys, those two guys that were out there, that father-son, they didn't even have a clue that whatever was emanating these red lights was just beyond them.
Was right there, like it was. They were closer to it than we were, whatever it was.
How scary! So I take solace in the fact that if something would have been eaten, those guys would have probably got eaten first.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So
they would have gotten them first.
So I reached out to David, okay, from the Paranormal Road that hosted us there, and I kind of asked him and Randy, because they, they're mediums and they sense like this. Because to me, at first, I'm like, oh, this has to be like maybe that's a demonic presence out there or something, okay? And he said him and Randy have never gone out there for any extended period of time, although there have been strange spiritual, supernatural stuff that happens in the campground. But he brought out, he goes, listen, I heard an episode on your friend Wes Germer's Sasquatch Chronicles from a guy in Western Pennsylvania telling a story that was almost identical to what we experienced, and the guy saw the two red eyes that they determined, they look like, I'm only referring to them as eyes because that is the distance in which they appeared to be away from each other.
And they went out.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not, and the guy described what first they thought they had to be maybe reflectors from a driveway, because that's what they look like size-wise, and then realized that the light was coming from within the circles, that they weren't reflecting. And he said that as soon as we started talking about that, that's the story he thought of. And I said, "You're not." I go, "Listen, I don't want to think that we were that close to something that had glowing red eyes. Because I don't care what it is. If it had glowing red eyes, it can't be good.
Yeah, no.
And if it had eyes the size of reflectors for a driveway, it definitely can't be any good.
It's got to be huge.
No.
Imagine how big something would have to be to have eyes that big.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
Right.
gosh.
No, I have a question for you guys. Okay. So you guys know, like, I'm into Bigfoot. Bigfoot's my thing. And I'm trying to figure out if it could be, like, a natural creature and all that. So when I'm out in the woods, I'm not thinking about all these supernatural things. So here we are out there, and the batteries are draining, and there's this weird thing, maybe with red eyes and all that. I have a question. So I know I was, like, giving my sphere to people to look through, but I didn't even know who it was. Like, you just kind of feel for their hands because it was that dark, and you're like, here, don't drop it. And you were saying that the judge is one of the people that was looking, and I didn't even realize that. What if it's, like, something to do with him? Because he wasn't, like, feeling too good out there. I mean, it was really hot, and he was, like, he felt like he needed gills, you know? But, like, what if something...
Well, and David brought that up, okay? He said, so how did the judge... He goes, how did the judge feel out there? Now, I attribute the judge to not feeling well to just him being a wuss. Because, that's just my...
It was bad out there.
Yes. But it does, and I guess it doesn't bother me as bad because I work outside in extreme hot and extreme cold. So it wasn't, I just knew it was hot. Okay. But you're absolutely right. The judge does have a history of drawing some stuff in. And I'm going to tell you, if he'd saw those red lights, he probably would have really been spooked. I mean, he only, I think, felt comfortable going out there because we had, like, a larger group of people.
Yeah.
And,
so maybe that was good. Sometimes stuff, we were talking about how usually I'm out there with smaller groups unless I take people like at a park or, state park or something. But maybe that was good for him that there were more people.
I don't know that he would have went out with us if it had only been like 2 or 3 people, to be honest. I don't think he would have. But I'm curious, Amy, that you're going to be spending the weekend with some of the, best Bigfoot minds in the country, and Ken Gerhardt's going to be there. He's been on our podcast, so he's familiar with all of us. I'm curious if you tell the story to these guys, what some of their ideas might be, or if they've run into similar things. Because the cold air, I still have that's what's made me think, this is, like, how does Bigfoot create cold air? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I would have gotten some of that cold air. I was...
Well, it was hot and muggy, that's for sure.
It felt good. Maybe whatever supernatural was out there thought, man, these guys need a break, And it felt good. It felt good. It did spook me at first because it felt so good, but then after I thought about it, I'm just like, what am I doing? I just walked up to an area where I saw red lights, and now this cold burst of air came through. Have I completely lost my mind?
Right.
But I will say I am certainly glad that you saw those red lights as well, because I would really be questioning what I really saw and what I did. So
no, they were there. It was they were there. Like, so much so that, like I said, I just assumed there was somebody over there with, like, 2 people over there with red headlamps on, but no, they were not. So I don't know what it was. It was definitely intrigued me.
Well, I will be curious to see if anybody at the Bigfoot conference has any
Yeah,
input
I'll ask Ken about it.
Yeah, see if any of those guys have had any kind of experience like that. I'll be curious to know. And if it's really, really bad, maybe I don't want to know.
Yes, we do want to know, even if it's really, really bad.
So, there's been stuff like that has happened down where Lester and I have gone down with some groups in Kentucky, and there's this one trail we've been on, and we are not the only ones that saw some weird red lights out there. So it's been known to happen. That's really the only other time that I can think of that I had a weird thing happen was in Kentucky, and there were red lights that we thought were headlamps again, and it wasn't. So, I mean, weird stuff like that doesn't happen often to me, but you were there for one of them.
Oh boy. Well, I get, it's always good to have a shared experience, right?
You always, if it just happens to you, you're constantly, questioning. Did I really see that? That's how I am when, my initial possible sighting. I'm like, did I really see it? And I did. I did see it. But it's easier when you have somebody to talk to about it, for sure.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us, Amy, for taking some time out of your trip down to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference. You're going to have a fun weekend, I'm sure. Can't wait to hear about it. So, we really appreciate you leading us newbies out into the woods and being a part of our first experience of whatever it was we experienced.
Yeah,
sure,
thanks, Amy. We look forward to going out there again.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
we
definitely. Well, I'll take you to some other places.
Great.
Oh boy.
All
See,
right.
Now you're making me scared.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, well, hey, safe travels, and we will talk to you on the flip side.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Be safe. Ladies and gentlemen, a final word. Please visit us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/From the Shadows Podcast, and on our Instagram page at instagram.com/From the Shadows Podcast. You can visit our webpage at FromTheShadowsPodcast.GoDaddySites.com, or contribute to our Facebook discussion page called After the Shadows, and tweet us on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/podcast_from. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.